Hi everyone, Paul Micallef here from Autism from the Inside. I make weekly videos sharing the human side of autism, so make sure you hit subscribe to get the latest content. So life is full of executive function challenges. There are so many different little tasks that can get in the way of getting stuff done. And what I have realized, especially for myself recently, is that a big part of being productive, getting stuff done, just managing, functioning in life in general, hinges on, can I get to from the start of a task to the end of the task without being sidetracked and getting completely stuck at one of these little barriers, one of these little hurdles that we have to overcome. So that's actually, speaking a bit meta at the moment, why am I recording an audio instead of a video like I would normally do? Well, if I were to create a blog video, I would have to set up my camera and my setup like this so that I've got the microphone and everything else. I would have to spend a couple of minutes doing that. I would have to prepare in advance what I was going to say. I would have to do these kind of little admin tasks that take my mind away from the main task, the main idea, which is to share these ideas and this insight with you around the barriers to executive function. So before I can share that with you, I also have to do all these tiny little life admin tasks, such as setting up the camera, setting up the recording, hitting record, making sure my hair is okay, or the lights are working, or all of these other tiny little things. So a good way of trying to get stuff done in life is to look for ways to remove those tiny little barriers. There is a fantastic book called Switch, How to Change When Change is Difficult, or something like that. And one of the core things in this book that I really love is that they say a big part of change is to make it easy for yourself. So shape the path is the way they talk about it in this book. And shaping the path or smoothing the path means making it as easy as possible to get the things you need done. So that might be if you're trying to learn to play the guitar, you set it up so that the guitar is ready for you to just pick up and play at any moment, because you know that you get an instinct and an urge to think, this would be fun, why don't I pick up the guitar and play? But if you have to find it, if you have to unpack it, if you have to dig it out of the cupboard, then suddenly they are all of these little extra barriers that make it just that little bit harder to actually do what you want to do. Another good example of this is around exercise. So if I want to get up and go to the gym in the morning, it helps if I set an alarm for myself. It helps if I get my shoes ready or pack my bag the night before, or things like that, so that when I need to actually do the thing, it's as easy as possible for me to do, and I can leverage the energy that I feel in that moment of motivation, that moment of inspiration, thinking, yes, I definitely want to do the thing. So that's kind of what I'm doing today. You might know that I like to get a bit meta about things. So in order to create a video, I assume this is probably going to go into a video because that's what YouTube likes. In order to create a video about barriers to executive function, I have to remove some of the barriers for my own executive function, which ironically in this case is not recording a video at all and literally just hitting record on my phone and speaking before I start forgetting what I actually want to say and getting sidetracked by all the life admin. So I kind of define life admin as the things that you have to do that don't really add value. And what I've realized is because there are so many life admin tasks that take me a lot of effort and energy, I tend to try and avoid as many of them as possible. And what this looks like is that I skip things where they're not 100% necessary. So what's an example of that? It's a little bit like wearing an old shirt under your jumper or under your jacket because you know that you're not going to have to take off your jacket anyway. So what's the point of dressing up underneath if you don't really have to, if it's extra energy? Or it might be, do I really need to shake hands or make eye contact? How necessary is that? Can I get away with doing something slightly less? How important is this? Just like I've asked myself, how important to sharing this message and this idea about executive function and removing the barriers to getting stuff done, how important is it that I look presentable and that I set up my cameras and my lights and that I edit it professionally? And how important are those things to the core of what I'm trying to do? Now, unfortunately, a lot of the time, the presentation of something is equally important to the actual content. So if we take YouTube, for example, half the job of a YouTube video is accomplished by the title and the thumbnail. Now, I haven't given any thought to the title or the thumbnail of this video. Contrary to advice of everyone on YouTube, you should really think about those things first. But they're so hard for me to do. So I think, do I really have to do it? How important is it? Can I get by without it? You can imagine that if I've asked myself this question, can I get by without it, for so many things, then eventually what I come up with is like this facade. It's like this, I'm imagining like old school Hollywood movies where the street of the Western is literally just fronts of buildings, and the buildings don't actually exist behind those fronts. And if I can put together enough of a facade to do everything that is really important, then behind that, it's actually not backed up by what you might expect. So what that means in real life is that if I can take a shortcut to save myself on executive function, I tend to do that. And it also means that if the situation is different to what I expected, if suddenly I'm in a situation where I have to take off my coat and I didn't plan on that, I'm like, well, I'm not dressed underneath to take off my coat. I was planning on having this as my facade for the whole night, and I hadn't planned anything more than that. Or scripting in social situations. What happens when I'm flustered or I have to think off the script? If I haven't planned for it, then suddenly that's a problem, and it's a bit unexpected for the people around me. I just had the thought now, for example, how good would it have been if I had remembered at the start of recording this that I planned to mention a book? Because usually when I mention a book that I really like, I recommend the book. This one was called Switch, How to Change When Change is Difficult, or similar. And I usually also mention, if you like book summaries, check out the Shortform app, which is a sponsored thing for people who like really detailed book summaries. Now, if I had remembered that earlier, then I could have planned to put it in this, I was going to say video, but in this recording, and then it would have been better, presumably. But it's all of those little things that I don't usually remember until after they're already here. And now I'm thinking, should I just start again? Should I hit stop on this recording and go back to the start and try and do it better now, including all of those bells and whistles that will probably make this a much better product, much easier for you to understand, much easier to present on YouTube and all of that. It's extremely draining to try to constantly tick all of those boxes. What I end up doing is trying to cut as many corners as possible, trying to automate as many processes as possible. So that's why some of the executive functioning hacks are things like eating the same thing every day, having social scripts, wearing the same thing every day, or having really strict routines. Because if I have a strict routine, if I have one way that I know always works in a situation, then I don't need to think about how I'm feeling at the time or what I need to do or any kind of complex executive function decision making. I just pull out the script, the routine, the habit that I prepared earlier, and that saves a lot on executive function. So I will probably leave it there, I suppose. I'm interested to hear what your executive function challenges are in real life. What are the things that are difficult for you beyond how much you kind of expect they should be? So you might imagine that, like, to take this as an example, you might imagine that the hardest part about making quality YouTube content, that might be something to do with the content itself. Whereas for me, the hardest part about making quality YouTube content is thinking of a title. What do I actually call this? I still have no idea what I'm going to actually call this video. I have no idea what kind of a thumbnail would be good. I've got no idea if I should try and make an edit that is visually interesting. Is that worth it? Is that really important? Or can I get by without it? So by the time you see this, you'll probably have an answer to all of those questions. What did I eventually decide to spend my time on? The actual content of this video will probably go for 10 or 15 minutes, but the amount of effort and energy put in after that to create that, to convert that 10 or 15 minutes of content into something that is actually pleasing to other people, something that is actually fit for public consumption. This is a little bit like when you're at home by yourself. You can do all of these things quite easily and simply and without worrying too much. But if you have to go in public, if you have to actually leave the house, suddenly you need to put on pants and various other things like that that are kind of expected socially that you might not necessarily have to do. So I hope you found this interesting. I'm really interested to hear what your executive functioning challenges are and what hacks you have to try and make things easier for yourself. Thanks. Bye. Did you know we have an online social group with weekly Zoom meetings via the Autism from the Inside Facebook page? It's free to attend, run by volunteers just like you, and no, you do not need a diagnosis to join. So please connect. We'd love to hear from you. And finally, don't forget to support this channel on Patreon. Even a small contribution makes a big difference.